Welcome to Free Burn. This is Matt Ballard, your host. This is the podcast where we talk all things mental and behavioral health in the first responder community. Real life firefighters, police officers, EMTs and paramedics, clinicians, and doctors. It's time we have the real conversation and burn the stigma behind first responder mental health, one podcast at a time. And welcome back, folks. It's Matt Ballard, your host, Free Burn 2023. Today, we're going to sit down with Dustin Jeter, 7-year vet of the Lewisville Fire Department. He's a peer team member. He's been married for 11 years, 2 kids. Welcome on, brother. What else you want to add to that bio? Would I miss anything?
No, you didn't. Glad to be here. Excited to, sit down with you and kind of help break that stigma in mental health and go from there.
Man, that's what it's about. Yep.
All the honest conversations that need to be had.
Yeah. That's what we're doing here, man.
That's a fact.
It is time to break that stigma and start having those real conversations for sure.
Because we're all, and the thing is, man, we're all so much more than just firemen, and we're husbands, fathers, children of God. Like we're so much more. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that.
Yep. 100%. So tell me a little bit about Lewisville Fire Department, man, and y'all's, just a quick rundown of what y'all are about and your peer team and where y'all are at today as far as like peer team stuff.
So peer team stuff, man, we've been fairly active, or extremely active, I guess. We do a lot of like couples nights. We've had people like through First come in and show like the physiological aspect of what this job does to you and why you take things home and subconsciously doing things that you don't even know you're doing. And we all do it. The couples nights have really kind of helped in regards to you bring awareness to the individual, right? But I don't know if you know this, but I think firemen are pretty stubborn.
No.
So when you bring awareness to the wife, that brings accountability and honesty into the relationship if the relationship is willing to go that way. So
yeah,
doing that has definitely been a game changer. We've probably had I'd say over half of our firemen and their spouses go to these things and be active in them. And they're truly an amazing thing, because you always have people asking for more. And so I know through First, they're adding in another, like a second part to it. It's more of a hands-on. So we do that. We've had people come in, like I said, and give an insight to every member to kind of get everybody on the same page of like what the job does, why you have these ups and downs, why do you want to be at work all the time, why are the hobbies that you used to have, like why is everything numb to you now? And so we're kind of gearing up over the last 3 years. We've been trying to catch everybody up on the why and what happens to you. So now ultimately the goal is to get some kind of like proactive mental health program in place. That way it's not just us, because we have actively, I want to say we have 12 members that are active and out there on shift,
on your
talking to guys. Yes. And we're trying to get more every year. And that's kind of the process we're going through right now is adding 3 to 6 guys to the team that are active and are going to be out there asking the hard questions. Because I think, just like awkward conversations have to be had when you start to see a conversation trending that way. So
how many stations does Lewisville have?
So Lewisville has 8 stations. We have 2 trucks. We're implementing a 2nd battalion in October. We have 5 medics, and we are fairly busy. I think we're on pace to hit about 16,000 calls this year.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep. So medics are busy. We have a lot of like Section 8 homes. We run a lot of serious calls, a lot of good calls, a lot of crazy stuff we see. So plus we have a part of the lake, so drownings are always
that's a big part of it.
A heightened call volume in the summer months.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Lewisville is just north of the Dallas Metroplex, just right outside, right? Maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Something like that, north of Dallas. Lewisville Lake area, obviously.
Yes, so like northwest. Yeah, we're just outside of, like, a lot of people know Denton, so we're just over the other side of the lake of Denton. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, so 7 years in, brother, and it got you, so to speak.
It did. And that's
a little, it seems a little early, right?
Yeah.
But I mean,
I
it
think
does
so.
happen. Yeah, it happens like that for some, and there's a reason. I think there's a reason why, and you're going to get into that.
I had a very different childhood, and I think everybody's life building up to who we become, and like once we join the fire service, a lot of that is like everybody calls it, it's all baggage, right? I always equate it to like a glass of water. So when I joined the fire service, my glass of water was 3/4 of the way full.
Right.
I didn't know that, I'd live life. I had a father who was in and out of jail. I didn't really know him much. I come from a heavily addicted side of the family from his end. And then I had a mom and a stepdad that were both addicted to drugs through my youth. So I didn't really have a lot of healthy outlets growing up.
Right.
Got into a bunch of trouble and got shipped off to live with my grandmother. And that's kind of when my trajectory ultimately changed, because she's a very God-fearing woman. She had structure, discipline, that's when it started. Like for me, learning to be a man, I guess you could say, and learning the difference between right and wrong, and having that moral compass.
Yeah.
So having all that baggage, from my youth, the woman who ultimately changed who I was going to be, got cancer the year I actually hired on. So from my first year there, being a rookie, having all this stress of, being the new guy, learning protocols, learning maps, learning districts, learning apartments, trying to be a good rookie. And then when I get off there, I go see her, and she actually passed a year later in 2018.
So how old were you when you first came in? How old were you when you first came into service?
25.
25. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you came in a little bit later. I mean, I was 27 when I came in. So
yes.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
Yep. And it was good. It was good for me that I think I came in with a little bit of life experience, being in a workforce.
Absolutely.
The reason I actually came in was because I was a 9-to-5 guy. I worked at Peterbilt Motors, and I did it for 7 years. The moment I turned 18, I got hired on at Peterbilt, and I did it for 7 years. Yeah. 2 of those being going through school, but for me, I needed more than just a paycheck, because I made good money,
Right.
My benefits were great, but doing the same thing every day, it just wasn't for this guy. So I actually gave my wife a choice of police, fire, or military, and thank God she chose this, because I love it.
She chose right, man.
I got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all honorable careers for sure. But I mean, obviously we're kind of biased, I guess you could say, towards fire service, because that's what we do.
Oh yeah. And I tell everybody I have the best job in the world. So every third day, get to hang out with some like-minded guys, be aggressive, do fun stuff, fight fire, run great calls, so we really do have the best job in the world.
Yeah. Are y'all working 24/48 still, or?
We are currently on 24/48s, and 4896s are being looked at, along with currently we're looking at 4-man staffing. So all those things to be progressive in the fire service.
Yeah. Yeah. We just switched over to 4896. We're in our trial period, quote unquote, but I think we'll probably stay there. Just depends.
Vast majority like it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, 2 days can be rough sometimes. I mean, obviously, but the 4 days is awesome, because it gives you time for recovery and just being able to bond with your family, in a bigger stretch, I guess you could say.
Yes. And I'll tell you, like, I know that you've probably seen all the statistics, like when it comes to like less sick time, things like that. First is kind of leading the headway, especially in North Texas. Like, people don't realize that when we're on shift, like, we're elevated, like we're all peaked out up here.
Oh yeah.
And normally people don't go through all these ups and downs like we do, as intense as we do. And so actually 4896s, which is kind of a study that First is doing, is it causes us to level off more normal, like normal humans. So the things that we eventually deal with and the things that kind of make us crack, it'll help level those things off. Chemical balances, cortisol, all those things that we get in our system that keep us on this roller coaster. 4896
You're staying in that fight or flight. Yep.
Yes. Hopefully it'll help make things better, help stop the highs being so high and the lows being so low. And so I know that's a study that's happening now, and hopefully good things come out of it, because every little edge that we can get, we need.
So you're through your rookie year? And
yes. So I was through my rookie year, going through it, and arguably going through the hardest part of my life, because there's obviously, as a kid, you grow up and you're born in the circumstances you're born in. I was a child. I couldn't actively change anything in my life. So to me, like I honestly thought, like, I washed my hands of it. Like my childhood was my childhood. There's nothing I could have done to change it. And I felt like what I did was forgave everybody for everything that I went through as a kid.
Yeah.
Little did I know, after my grandmother passed, which was arguably the hardest point in my life. I had, my daughter was 2, my son was just born. She never even got to meet my son. That's how sick she got. She lived for a year. She retired, got diagnosed, fought her fight for a year, and I would say she lost her battle, but ultimately she won because of where she is.
Absolutely. Yep.
But at that point, it was like just water in the cup, just add water. And I didn't even know that the water that was in there was currently in there, because to me, I was like, I'm good. You know what I mean? So go through my rookie year, and I don't know how, I imagine most people, you have white clouds or black clouds. Unfortunately for me, I'm a black cloud. So to give perspective on that, me and my best friend in the fire service, we worked together for probably 2.5 years, and every single CPR was mine. It just, because we have a dual medic box, so we flip-flop calls. Well, it was just dumb luck that it was always me. And we probably had over 1.5 to 2 dozen CPRs and Signal 27s in that time frame. So it was just, that's my luck. And it makes me, yes. And so you don't even know you're stacking them, because some of the calls you forget, like when you're at this table and you're talking, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that call. Some of them you don't forget. Some of them you remember so vividly that it's not healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're pushing through my rookie year. Loved it. Love Lewisville. Love everything about it. After like I said, that was my hardest year. And unfortunately, like, I hate saying this, but it's ultimately true. At that point, like, I had so much anger built up, I'd kind of turned my back on God, because I felt like, you took one of the most important things from me. And I never got to pay her back. And I think that's something that will always haunt me, but it's also what makes your relationship so great when it comes to like death. Like, the love that you had is so important. Cause I never got to take care of her like she took care of me, and I felt like I was robbed of that. So I had a lot of anger, and that's what came up and broke me. And my wife looked at me and said, you either need to get help, or we're not going to be here anymore. And that's kind of when it all happened. So through 2017, 2018, started running calls. Just as good as anybody, adult calls, like, they're older. You can kind of chalk it up to like, okay, like, I'll remember this like vividly, but it doesn't weigh on me. Then I had a string of some pediatric calls that, like, for instance, there was the first one that I ever ran was, I had a 30-year captain tell me that was the worst thing he'd ever seen. And I'm like, yay, I saw it year 3. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. But it was a rock truck versus a sedan doing 70, and it T-boned them. And so everybody has, which you could probably attest to, everybody has something that they keep, like, from calls, and whether it 100%. Smells, the things they see. Mine are always screams.
Is it really?
Yes. So the screams of every call, my first CPR, the wife standing at the door screaming, help my husband, help my husband. The boy from this accident was screaming the entire time that we were on scene. Those things are what truly, that and this, obviously the things that we go through in the call itself. But when you want to talk about like what haunted me and what kept me from sleeping and what really affected my life totality wise, it was the screams.
Yeah.
So
I think we talk about that every podcast that I've done. I laugh because it's not funny, but
No.
they're all the same, dude. It's like everybody takes something with them from the calls that we run. For me, it was airbag smells, the powder.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of them. That's one of my triggers. I know that now. Another one is kids' shoes, bro. It's crazy, but every like bad fatalities I've had, I've seen kids' shoes on the highway. So, and I don't know what it is, man. It's just something with that, right? It's crazy.
And it's so individualized to every person,
it is.
How different it can be.
And I have a couple of other ones, but I mean, luckily I'm not okay with that, but I am okay with it now because I've learned how to handle that and how to deal with it through MDR sessions and stuff like that. But
yes,
it's nuts, man, how your mind grabs a hold of stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's even crazier to me that you can't like it's just like any other physiological response, right? Your body just does it. Your body just holds on to that itself. It chooses for you. And you're like,
yeah,
why did it have to be that? So,
yeah.
I couldn't have a choice here.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy, but I mean,
it is
it's a real deal. So yeah, bad calls are starting to happen. And
oh yeah.
So you're how many years in?
So I was probably 2 to 3. I was 2 years in when that happened, the wreck, and it was a pivotal moment for me because it was like the first time I really ever saw trauma. And so we were actually playing ping pong at the station because it was a weekend, and the wreck was right outside the station. We turn right again, and it was 100 yards down the road. So there's a Signal 27. There's a girl whose life changed forever because she had a diffuse axonal injury. So the axons that create like thought to movement sheared. So her and then the boy, like I said, was screaming. Like there's so many lives that were changed forever. And I never realized like the depth of the things that make us like great leaders, empathy being one of those. Like I'm an extremely empathetic person, and I never realized the depth of that and how that would haunt me. Because when we got back to the station and I'm like sitting there and everyone else is like, man, that was nuts. I'm like, yeah, as a father, I was the girl in the back seat who was a Signal 27 when we got there. I'm sitting here thinking like, there's a mother and father like at home. She's cooking, he's mowing the yard, and their lives are profoundly changed forever from this moment. And I'm talking to y'all sitting in a chair. Like this, pardon my French, like I was like, I'm fucked up. Like this is fucked up. I don't know how to feel. And that to me is something, that moment right there, that's something that every fire department needs to capture. Like before they get to that point, let them know this is normal. This is not normal. Right. Because that next day, that's all I thought about. The day after that, that's all I thought about for weeks. And so you move on 6 months to a year later, that call, then I had a box when I was at Central, the busiest station that we had. Every time I rode the box with a guy who's now about to promote to captain, we'd have kid calls. That was just every shift. We'd have a kid call, whether it be a seizure, whether it be SIDS, whether it be, just a kid fell and they just want the mom. It was always kids. And I told myself, we got to stop riding the box together, period.
You got to go, bro.
Yes. One of us has to leave or we're not allowed to be on the box together. I don't care how this works out.
Right.
So you stack that on Sid's kids. Before, like after the call with that wreck, there were a couple like Sid's babies that we had ran on. I'd realized like, okay, something's like my anger is like getting super intense. And I need to fix that. So before my wife even said anything, I reached out to EAP and I was like, all right, I need to get ahead of this. And unfortunately, I got a counselor or a therapist that wasn't versed in like what we do or the how to deal with the trauma that we see. Because once I started really unpackaging a lot of the things that I had seen that I was like, that was just hard for me to deal with. She told me, she said, whoa, you can't say that. No, I don't want to hear that much. I'm like, do you want to hear it at all then? And
really,
yeah. So that actually caused me to stop going. And that was a moment of like, well, I guess I'm on my own.
just can't handle it, man.
No.
I mean, that's why we need vetted counselors.
Yeah.
Ones that we
People
can
that
go
are more
to.
versed in our lives, like explaining 2448s or 4896s to people, or explaining how medic shifts work, like, and things like that. Like, I think that we should have our own like dedicated body of, therapists and psychologists that help us through the things that we go through, who want to hear,
100%.
To help us truly unpack it all, not just kind of open the suitcase and each individual call has its own box. That's not how you fix things.
No, not for us. It ain't. Yep.
Yeah. Try to get help, rug pull, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess this isn't gonna be anything good. So start stacking up more, putting more water in the cup every shift.
How was station life for you at that time?
It was great.
Home life was the anger coming out at station life too?
It was, but through a different avenue. I'm an overly competitive guy, like way overly competitive, to a point where like I was ruining relationships because I didn't want to lose. And I didn't know, like we talked about before, right? You come into the fire service and all this baggage you have with you comes with you. Like failure for me was being irrelevant, right? Because my parents didn't really, I was the youngest, I was the runt. I didn't really feel it. I didn't get a lot of attention. I actually had a birthday where my parents completely forgot it was my birthday. Right. And
wow.
They woke me up at midnight to give me a muffin with a candle in it, just because they realized that they 100% forgot. So for me, through the vast majority of my life, I felt completely irrelevant. And so the only way I got attention was through being good competitively. And so failure to me just wasn't an option. So how does that transcend into the fire department? As I'm going through these calls, and I don't know about you, or anybody else, but when I got into this, I wanted to help people. I wanted to change people's lives. I wanted to be the difference maker. So I have all these people that end up passing away or have these CPRs. I'm not getting anybody back. And then the guys that I'm riding with, they're all one of the best FTOs we've ever had. Two of the other guys are just stud medics. They do everything right. So, I have the pressure of being as good as them.
Yep.
I have the pressure in my own mind of no failure. So I come in every shift, have a CPR. It doesn't work out. I'm like, come on. And I go back to the station. I'm like, all right, it's your fault. It's on you. So go back to the station, be sharper at protocols, be better at drug calculations, that way there's no hesitation, right? Because if I can know all this on the forefront, fundamentally, I will perform better in the field. And so I was like, it's on you. Go back, do it. Be better at knowing where things are. Don't let yourself skip a beat. But even though I progressed, and it made me better for sure, but it was still confirmation bias is what they call it, is no matter the outcome of the situation, I looked at all the things that, in my opinion, were confirming that you're a bad medic, you need to be better, you're failing, instead of looking at the facts. And that's what you do in that situation when nobody's there to help you to truly analyze the situation with you. And I was just, every time I just dig that hole deeper. And I'm scooping, shovels full of dirt out of this hole because I'm telling myself, you're not good enough. And so I'm trying to be better, but I can't.
We are our own worst enemy when it comes to stuff like that.
We have no control over it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know 100% what you're talking about, because I'm basically the same way for me. I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to stuff like that. Testing's one of my nemesis right now, emotional test. It's just like get my butt kicked by them all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I study, I do everything else. It's just not my time, and it's very frustrating for me.
Oh yeah.
But, so I get what you're saying.
I can see it.
100%. Yep. You're that magnet running all the bad, good calls, right?
Yeah.
I guess you could say, and just trying to validate yourself in a sense, I guess, is what it is. But
100%. So next for me was, again, like I said, quit therapy. There was a pivotal moment that for me, it just, I will always remember it. Like right after I quit going to therapy, about, I don't know, a month later, I'd look at my hands and I would just, my self-talk was terrible. I think just like the majority of people who get in our situation, who get that low, their self-talk is just bad, bad, bad. And I looked at my hands in the kitchen, and it's shift change was C shift. And I'm in my class B, you know, I'm ready for the day. It's probably 6:30, 6:40. And I'm looking at my hands, and I'm just like, the hands of death. Like that's what they were to me. And, battalion calls the station. They say, what's the lineup for the day? And one of the guys I was with gives them the lineup, says Jeter's on the medic. And I just remember standing my back against that wall, just screaming in my mind, like, fuck, damn it. Like, I was just screaming, like, help me. And there was nobody to help, right?
So no peer team at this time, correct?
No peer team. The biggest thing that we had at the time was, hey, if something bothers you, you know, like you're at the kitchen table, you're like, hey, are y'all good? Everyone's like, yeah, we're good. It's like, okay, cool. And then like to the next one, you know? Because I wasn't going to go to those dudes, those like stud guys, like who to me, like I look up to, I want to be those guys. I'm not going to go and say, hey guys, like this messed me up. Like, I don't know how to get past this. I've hit a wall.
Yeah.
I'm not going to them. Like, and nobody else is talking about it. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to keep trucking along.
Yeah, I'm the only one that's going through this. That's how I felt. You know,
alone.
Nobody knows what I'm going through. Yeah.
You are by yourself. So trucking along at the station, things are being the normal. For me anyway. I know for you, we had talked previously, man, anxiety through the roof. Coming, I literally felt like a race car that was redlined the whole time. Just that motor screaming the whole time. And I'm always in fight or flight, always. I can't sit still. I can't have normal conversations. My emotions, like anytime something would happen, like boom, anger, boom, anger. It was just the only emotion I had. So I was actually ruining relationships at the station because we had a really good station life where we all hung out together constantly. So through that came competitive like events, things like spike ball, ping pong, you know, the normal.
Yeah.
And I was a straight running asshole, like just no regard for anything I said. And I hate being that person. But that's, like I said before, all the stuff from pre-fire, then into fire, like the failure, the anger, that's how it manifested for me. Till I was working B shift, I was working OT, and we had a 4-year-old drowning in a hot tub. It was late at night, and the kid was 10 days older than my daughter. So that was, I'd never wanted anything more in my life, like in that moment. And this is really kind of what ultimately made me snap, is because as you're holding this boy, we take him to the medic, we're doing CPR. There's like 15 people in the back of that medic, and I look over, and thank God I'm with one of the guys that my FTO. He was on that call with me that day, and I told him, you're on airway, start delegating tasks, doing CPR. And I had him to lean on, which is awesome. I had to clear out probably 5 dudes out of the back of that medic so we could actually work. I never wanted to save someone's life more than in that moment. Like you want it so bad. And with all the things that I already experienced, it like, don't fail. And then the call went great, right? If you ask anybody that was there, the battalion was there, like everybody was there. And it was like, they even told me like, you couldn't have done any better, but that wasn't the case for me.
Yeah.
We get to the ER. I remember straddling this kid on the cot because I was doing chest compressions, and they wheeled me in. I was sitting on him, gave report, and I'm sitting in the EMS break room, and I am like done, but I can't show that because this room's full of 10 people. My battalion, the battalion, the fit driver, the guys I'm with, the captain, and I'm sitting there at the computer, and the EMS break room is adjacent to the trauma room. Well, all I can hear is that mom screaming. And so it, as you're sitting there and your self-talk isn't that great anyway, and you just hear her like pleading with God, you're like, man, I can't sit here. So I walk out of the room. We go back to the station. It was a late night call. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Went home, and that's when the conversation happened with my wife. Like, we were driving to Walmart, and something I can't even remember what made me like, I snapped. That was it. I'm just crying. I'm like pissed off. And she's like, that's when she tells me like, you need to see somebody. You need to try again. You've got to fix this because the person you are, like, we can't handle it because we talk about how it wasn't at the station. Like, I love those guys, but at the end of the day, I'm a husband and a father. And I came home and I was just like, I imagine you can attest to, man, is my patience was this thin. I couldn't even play with my kids because I couldn't sit still that long. Like my daughter was granted, my son was like 1 to 2 years old when I was going through this. And my daughter was about like 2 to 4. And so she'd want to play and I couldn't even play with her. If they'd spill something, I would I would break. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, I feel like a terrible father. I'm not communicating with my wife because I can't say anything to her. And ruining the relationship with my wife because I'm not attentive. I'm not communicating. I'm not asking her, like, what do you need from me? You know, there's me with all my problems in this little corner and I'm just beating myself down and everyone else is around me just watching from the outside. And like I said, the screams, right? That's what haunted me. And I'd be home. I'd be sitting there eating. My kids would just be playing. Like, they're not doing anything wrong. One of them screams, boom. Like, didn't skip a beat. I am at a 10.
Yeah.
And couldn't
throw you
break
completely
that.
into the red. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I know how that is, dude. A lot of the similarities
every
with
time.
me too. Yep. Yeah.
And it's ridiculous how much of this follows us home. Like, how much of it truly affects like every facet of your life, no matter what you're doing. And it changes you forever.
Sure it does.
And people wonder why is divorce so high in the fire service? Why do people die of heart attacks? Well, let's talk about the hormone releases. Let's talk about the unwillingness to communicate or to give on anything, because the losses that I was taking at work, I'm not taking them at home. I'm making decisions, and you're not going to tell me no, you know, because I have control there. You know what I mean? And so you're not willing to budge. And you're just this tyrant asshole of a person. And you can't tell me that that's not a storm brewing that will change your life or alter your life forever.
Oh yeah, it does. It changes you, right?
It does.
I know it does. It changed me. And I hated it, but it was like, for me, I didn't know really what was happening to me, you know, for a long time. It just, you know, I was that asshole and it was what it was, you know, until I started really getting.
You're just an asshole. I'm like, I guess so. I don't know how I became this person, because I don't think anybody is like, okay, I'm changing a little bit. I might want to keynote that, you know, you just, you're driving and all of a sudden you get to where you're going and you didn't even try. You weren't even trying to get to that place, but here you are.
And it never goes away, dude. At least for me, it never goes away. It's like, I'll do fine for a period of time and then something will get me. And then I'll have to, that's part of that resiliency, you know, it'll hit me and then I'll go into that spot for a little while and then okay, something's going on. And then I have to check myself and then get back to square one. It's all about that resiliency, man.
But it'll never, like, as long as we do this job, and that's the biggest thing, that there's a handful of things that like key things that people need to understand is, as long as we do this job, the things that set us off, the triggers that we have, the situations like we get into where it's fight or flight, those will never go away. They never will. But what we can do is we can have the knowledge to combat those things, to bring us back down, and to help us re-engage and to be intentional with the relationships that we have, to not ruin them, but check ourselves, be honest with ourselves, and to learn from it and be better, and to truly change it. Because the only way, you know, and I know, the only way to truly get rid of it is to take out the variable that causes it. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to quit being a fireman.
No, I really don't either. One of these days I'll have to, but I don't think I'm there yet. I don't want to be there yet.
Yeah. No. You know? I'm definitely not.
Yeah. I mean, I have almost 22 years in, and I know it's getting close, but I still love fighting fires. I still love serving the public, which is what we do. So,
But the
That day
beauty
will
of the
come.
resiliency, yes. But I think given you the tools, and this is like a disservice to every generation that came before us, because I know you've watched a guy his last shift there walk out of the fire station. And you're like, he's not like, it's been a good ride. Like, you've done everything you can. Like, what you've done is truly change the fire service in a whole. And they're like, they can't walk out the door. And it's like, there's so many things we can do with resiliency training, with helping them unpackage their whole career before they retire to make them more successful for the next chapter of their lives. And we've done a disservice to the fire service by not doing that.
Yep. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about here lately is retirees, right? Getting rid of all that baggage that they've carried for 25, 30 years, however long they've been on. They need to separate themselves from that so that they can move on in their retirement life and not have to dwell on the craft that they did for the past 20 or 30 years, the craft that they saw and everything else.
Oh, 100%.
So we need to do a better job at that also.
Yes. Because just as resiliency and like therapy and all these things that we can do to make us like to benefit when we're here, when we're on shift, there's so many things we can do pre-retirement to help us transition into that next phase to be better at being that person. Because that's all life is a chapter. Like you go through these chapters in life. Well, let's make you better at being now. Let's focus on being a great dad. Because we, like I said, we are so many things before we're firemen.
Yeah.
So why should the fourth thing or the fifth thing that I identify control the rest of my life? It shouldn't.
Yep.
And so setting them up to undo, like you said, empty out that baggage, man. Like get rid of all that stuff. So the next page you turn, you're going to be a better version of yourself for having done that. And you're going to be more successful at being a grandfather, at being retired, at being a husband. And it's like I said, it's a disservice that we do and that we have done in the fire service as a whole.
You're never going to get rid of it, like we talked about earlier, but at least you'll know how to deal with it in a better way. So when those things do come up, you know how to deal with them, get out of them faster. Let's get back to the green as quick as possible. And that's where the ENC and everything else comes in. So with you're at that point, right? You're done. You've had enough. Okay.
Yes.
So what was the next step for you? Did they take you off duty or?
No, it was still a secret. Like I just broke to my wife and then like everything had come to a point, and because ultimately, right, when you get married, you become different people throughout your life. And I was becoming a different person and neither one of us liked that person that I was becoming. I hate looking back and thinking like who I was as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a fireman. I need to stop saying hate. Is what I've been told. And I really dislike that person. So the dislike I have for him is so big that I'm also grateful because now I can look back and say, I will never be that person again. So when I do get to those points, I'm like, hey, pull back, give me a second. And like I said earlier, your spouse, like my wife has been such an integral part of this because you can go all day and try to check yourself, but when she looks at you and says, babe, it's time, you're like, okay. She keeps me honest to a point to where I can't hide from myself. I can lie to myself all I want, but when she looks at me and says, you want to take a second? And I go, I do. So without her, I know my growth in this wouldn't have been as substantial for sure. Because just like that moment, right? When we peaked, she said, you've got to do something. Like something has to give here. It's either you change or we're not going to be here. Like nobody, I didn't want that. I didn't want to become that person. So just like in that moment, she keeps me honest. And that's where the information for your spouse, like to me, when we truly change the fire service as a whole, it's not just you that has the information to be better. It's your spouse, it's your kids, it's everybody in your life that's there to help you be the best version of yourself. Yeah. And so
that's to me one thing that our peer team is lacking right now is that end of it. I think it's coming, but we don't have anything set for our families and our kids as far as like the programs that y'all have, where y'all have the family night or whatever it is. We need that through our department too. So,
and that's that's why I think peer, like, I would love to see, like, we have KTA, keeping tradition alive, all the pipes and drums guy. I'm in pipes and drums. I love that stuff. I love the tradition of the fire service. But man, I'd love to see something where all these peer support teams get together and they discuss things that have worked, things that haven't, programs that they're doing, programs that they've done. And they're like, this really isn't for us, because the faster you can get all that information out, the faster we can truly really like change everything from this point on.
Yeah.
Because I've helped
let's
just
make
on my
it happen,
time
bro.
I completely agree. I'm good with it. We've talked to Richardson. We've talked to so many departments. We actually have had other departments members come in and sit in on the couples nights that we've had. So and like I told you, the next one we have, I'm extending an invite to you. You can come out.
Dude, I would love to
I will
come.
more than likely be there with my wife. I love having my wife there because she's a little less outspoken, and I don't like speaking in front of people either. But I've had wives that'll reach out to her and talk to her and about truly how was it with me when I was going through those things, to give them insight so they can be better spouses for their husbands who are going through this stuff, because we all go through it together.
Mm-hmm.
So giving out that information
I'm trying to get her to hop in on a podcast or something. She's like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, look, the wives need to know. I mean, you went through some serious crap too. You know, it wasn't just me; it was the whole family. Mm-hmm. So maybe one day I'll get her on here eventually.
Good.
I'm still working on it.
Good. You can't say this, but you can say this. And that's our peer team leader. His wife has been amazing, just like he has. Mm-hmm. She's doing wife night out, and her and my wife and two of the other wives, like, they've done what's called R Watch, which is where you do like therapy, but you're with like horses, and horses are like, I don't know what they call it. I can't remember, but they're like social creatures where they feel everything that you're holding on to. And so if you've got to be honest with them, and then you'll get the reaction from the horse. It's actually, my wife and I did it. It is an experience, my friend. If you do it with your wife, it is, there's a lot of rawness with the other couples you're there with. And that's, you see that you're not the only one going through this. You're all going through the same things. And your wives are like pointing at each other like, you too. And you're like, time out. Let's not point fingers here.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy, man.
And there's a lot of those out there, man, but there's a lot of programs out there that advocate for your relationship with your spouse and your relationship with your kids. And we need to get all that information out there.
Yep. 100%. I don't know if you ever looked at the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, but Jeff did.
Yes.
And dude, it's just steadily climbing. I mean, it's not, until that number's, man, at 0, I'm not going to stop or unless until I'm in the grave, one of the two. You know, we just can't. I mean, we're losing too many people to this stuff. And, you know, I don't know if it's because of lack of resources or just not knowing about resources, or they just, I don't know what it is, or both.
It's both, man. I've talked to guys from other departments who don't have peer support teams. You know, I've had people in my house, guys who truly needed help, and they come over and I'll refer them to all the programs I can. But dude, you remember, just like I remember, how lonely it is, how like you're on an island and there's no change in sight, and you can't.
I say I don't know what it is,
you're alone,
but I do know what it is. Yeah, I know what it is because I was almost there, right? I mean, just like you said, you're the only one that's dealing with this crap, and nobody out there understands you. You know, and that's the way I feel.
What are the things that keep you going in life? Really and truly, like, what are they? My wife. I live for my wife. I live for my kids. You know, I live to be a godly man. I live to be a great fire. Like, I want to truly change people's lives. And when you start identifying as all those as like, I suck at this, I suck at this, I suck at this, nothing in my life is going right. Like, I can't change anything. I've tried. What, like, I see why it's so high. And that's the worst part about the fact when you look at those numbers is every single one of those is 100% preventable.
Sure. And that's the thing, dude. Now we got to figure out how to get to those people before they get to that. Yeah. Before they get to that point, you know?
And that takes people like you, takes people like me, takes people like our peer team leader, all the guys we have on our peer teams. Because if we can all get that out there, right, and through the course of our careers, change one person's life, and that one person talks to another person, changes their life. Like eventually, right, through time and through exposure, you will have a fire service that has changed itself from the inside out.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what we all need. We need PD needs to do the same, right? Because we look at military, they need to do the same. Like all these people that go through these PTSD events, the things that they hold on to that stay raw, like you have to change it from the inside.
Now that you're on this side of it, right? I mean, you still deal with issues like we all do.
Oh, yeah.
We've been through counseling and done stuff like that to learn how to deal with it a little bit easier. But you went through, who did you go through when you finally reached out for help?
So when I reached out for help, it was actually a really like weird situation and as to how it happened, because I went through EAP for a second time. And
did you really?
I was sitting in my truck and I was like sitting here thinking like, I don't want to go in here. Like she's not going to know anything. So I actually left because like I told you, I had such a bad experience the first time. The second time I was like, I left and I didn't tell my wife. I had actually made the decision that I was going to quit. That I was going to quit doing the thing that I loved. Yes. Because I couldn't go in there and have somebody else tell me again, like, I don't want to hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? I don't know if that would have completely crippled me, but I didn't have enough strength to go in there for a second time.
Yeah.
So I had made the decision. I'm done. Like, if this is what's causing me to be this way, I've got to quit. Not even a week later, I'm sitting here going through my mind trying to figure out how do I leave the fire service but still, provide for my family. Like, it's going to change my life forever. A retired fireman walks in, recently retired, and he starts talking to me about a program that he went through called 3 for the Love. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, in my mind, I'm like, thank God. Like, he's telling me it worked. He's telling me they understand everything you need. They understand the aspect of the trauma that you're going through. It's hard and heavy. It was everything I needed. And it was only by God's grace did I have that conversation. From there, I reached out to my association president, and because I couldn't afford on my own, because my wife stays home. I'm the working man. So
mine too, brother. I'm right there with you.
So I reached out to him and I asked him for help. Like I didn't know what to do. And that was the first time I broke to like a peer, like someone else. And so, he gave me all the help that I needed, told me he would always be there. And he's actually the one that started my process through 3 for the Love.
Yeah.
And through that, obviously I met my therapist. But going through Jennifer's program is it's intense. And I believe you went through it, correct?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so intense, but it's intense to a point to where it's everything you need. Like I needed every bit of that.
Sure.
And that was very much an intricate part of me changing and to being a better version of myself.
Yep.
So went through her program, and then I actually started talking to her about going through workers' comp, and and I was still pretty uncomfortable with everything, because I was still keeping it close to my chest. I wasn't telling anybody. My best friends at the department, like, they're like, why are you going to so many doctor's appointments? Because that's what I was doing when I was off, as I was going to all these appointments for 3 for the Love.
So you were still on duty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I was still on duty, and I'd go when I got off shift, and I'd usually do all my stuff then. So they started to notice, things, and I wasn't giving them an inch because I didn't want anybody to know,
Yeah.
I still very much felt like I was the only one going through this because nobody talked about it. And then when it kicked in for me to start doing like the workers' comp claim, I had to sit down with my captain and then sit down with my chief at another meeting, and things really started to change for me when I sat down with my current station captain, and he told me how everything I was doing was right, that he told me I was on the right track, that he wishes that he would have handled it the way that I did, and that things would have been different for him because he handled a lot of things in a way that probably shouldn't have been done. And he was like extremely proud of me for taking that step. And I was like, I think, just like as you're going through this process, like you have like these sighs, like this, you take this deep breath of relief, and you're like, "Ooh, okay, I'm doing the right thing." And that was one of those moments. I'm doing the right thing.
Yep.
And from there, sat down with my chief, and he was overly like accepting of the things I was going through, wanted me to truly get help, so I did. And from that moment, probably, I think it was right at 3 to 4 years in. It was 4 years in. I've been seeing the same therapist that I've seen since that moment. Granted, do I see her? I see her less frequently, but it took that long to truly talk about the things that you're experiencing, right? Because you got to drink the water one sip at a time. You always start with the top end of it, right? You always drink the top level of water first. To truly change and look at the aspect of, why do I hold on to these things? Why is failure such a transcending emotion for me? Why is it such something that just resonates in every part of my life? To truly fix who I was.
Right.
And it took a long road, a lot of communicating with my wife. And one thing that I wish would have changed is, like, at first my wife was like, "This is your thing. This is not like, I don't know what to do for you." And so when I was at home, I was going through it alone here. I was going through it alone at the station, and I had really nobody to talk to. And that's obviously changed through time. You know, after we've done sessions together, we've done probably 3 couples resiliency trainings together between our watch through First, through all these resources. And she did, ultimately she came to me and apologized to her. Like, I didn't realize, and I don't think any spouse does, realize like how much this weighs on you, and I would have been there for you, and I'm sorry. And that's, to me, like we talked before, like, inform, give the tools to the people, to the fireman, to the spouse, to the family, and watch it free burn, I guess,
Yep. So yeah, dude, that's awesome. So how many years now have passed that
since the first time I got changed? So you're looking at, and it can happen to anybody. It can happen to a 20-year guy, a 30-year guy, a 10-year guy. And that's what, I tell these young guys when they come in, I have honest God conversations with them, because I would rather have an awkward conversation, because just as some people, like, mental health is an awkward conversation to have.
Sure it is.
I love living in the awkward now after experiencing everything I experienced. But telling these guys, man, look, nobody gets to choose when they break, because if we did, it'd be, oh, cool. I would pick the most convenient time of my life to lose my shit. Nobody gets a choice. You may be 1 year in, this guy may be 15 years in. That's the beauty of individuality in the road that we all travel. Is it's so different, but we can all relate on almost everything. So the guys who are leaving at 20 because they're maxed out and they're done, we need to prevent that. These guys who have been here for 3 years, who break and are like these, like a shadow of their former selves, or like they look at themselves and they just can't stand what they see in the mirror. We can't let that happen. And everybody's journey is different. And that's the kind of beauty that we walk through life.
Dude, you're headed in the right direction. I love it. You're going to be impactful.
By the grace of God, I am.
Yeah. I mean, Lewisville is lucky to have you, and I'm lucky to have you on this program, because people need to hear that. The workers' comp stuff, I was right there, but just, I was scared, man. Like, should I do workers' comp or not? I ended up burning 700 hours of sick time that I had banked up. I had 1,400 hours of sick time banked up, and I used sick time when I was off for 4.5, almost 5 months, not on duty, and it sucked. So that's a whole nother avenue there when you start talking about, what's the best way to deal with it, as far as like staying on duty, staying off duty,
But I think that ultimately, like, for me, I was, after the conversations with Jennifer and her team, like, that truly, like, got everything rolling, because I didn't know if I could be on duty. Like, I didn't want to be pulled off duty, but that's just having the guys who refer you out, and having the resources and trusting those people to be the ones that help you, that walk you along the way. Like, that's why it's so important to find the right people.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude. So what are the marriage things? Just go over the marriage things that you did, so people will know. First is one of them, right?
Yes. So it's F1 RST. It's first responder stress and therapy. First responder, stress and trauma. I apologize.
There you go.
She actually, her name's, her and her husband both, do everything that you go through. And it's actually really remarkable. She's in the North Texas area. She does a lot of we actually did our peer support program started from her 3-day. So it's 3 days. You get everything you need from front to back. It's at the Star in Frisco.
Yep.
And so she has her peer support program. She has her couples night out program where she goes over the physiological aspects of the job. It's extremely interactive to where, honest conversations are happening between your spouse giving her side of the story, you giving, what's changed for you from your end, and your spouse gets to write down what's changed from her aspect of things. And it's just raw and honest. And it really brings light especially to your spouse. If you haven't had it for yourself, it shows you why you're doing the things you're doing to help you get through them. She's implementing a second stage to the peer support or to the couples night out, which my wife and I are doing in September with some other couples. And it's more the resiliency side, right? The training to the why. So we know the why. Here's what you do to fix it.
Yep.
And she goes through some of that in her first class. I think she hits more of it in the second one. Which I'll for sure give you more details on when I go through it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another program that she has is called Our Watch. And it's again in the DFW area. Like, we have a lot of resources that are just easily tapped into. 3 for the Love, Our Watch first, and you can go through it with your spouse. Your wives can do it just as a group. I recommend doing it as a spouse first. Because when we did it, you go through these evolutions with the horse, and you have to communicate effectively and be honest with each other if you want the outcome to be positive.
Yeah.
Well, during that, again, she goes through the why, the physiological aspect, and why we do the things we do. We work overtime, why we're disassociated from the hobbies, disassociated from the family. And it's just, it really, any program she does brings light for you and your spouse and your family as to why you're dealing with the things you're dealing with. And I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of them. And I know she puts them on all the time, which after this, I will send you all the information you could possibly
send me the
want.
information. and I'll share that on my Facebook and Instagram so people know. I mean, it's resources, man. I mean, we're just stacking resources now. Instead of we're still stacking traumas, we're also stacking resources for those traumas. So let's get
That's a fact. To build resiliency, you got to have the tools to do that. And we're all gaining the tools we need to make us better for the future.
Absolutely.
And that's all we can do.
Well, dude, that's awesome. I'm glad you're on this side, and keep pushing, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. You have the resources, you have the support no matter what. So, yeah.
It's true. I think everybody has a niche in the fire service. And after going through what I went through and potentially completely ruining everything in my life that mattered, this is my niche. So from now till I retire, man, it's I want to make every generation, every year of a fireman that comes after me more aware, more resilient, and just overall better version of themselves.
Yep.
So we found our niche.
Yeah, definitely, dude. If you need anything from us, from me, Freeburn, whatever, reach out. Let us know. I mean, I'll go anywhere that I can to talk about it. I have this little, I've got the PowerPoint presentations that I do is mental health awareness, behavioral health awareness. And it's about 45 minutes to an hour. And then I incorporate my story. And I've seen that just already starting to take effect with certain people. So,
and that's the thing, man. We have to speak out. Like, the moment we're all
no more
honest and truthful with each other is when you start to see the domino effect, man. Like, you have guys coming to you, having conversations. You're like, I see where this is going, And so, if we're all honest and we're all out there trying to break the stigma together, there's no way it survives, right?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. But we just got to keep pushing.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
We're wrapping up, dude. Is there anything else you want to add, or?
Just to anybody out there who's ultimately going through anything, that everybody's feeling is different. Something that you're going through may not affect another person, and that's okay. But be honest with yourself, and just know that as you go through your career, like holding on to things and remembering things is perfectly fine, right? We all do. The problem is, and this is why I try to tell the young guys, is not the remembrance of what happened, but if I think about that or something reminds me of that and it elicits a negative response or a response that I need to get away from, that's the bad thing.
Yeah.
That's what you need to talk about, to fix. Because all those stacked up, that's the demon we all fight. The things that make us great are the things that haunt us. So have insight, have guys around you that you can be honest with and talk, because I can promise you that you're not alone. There's guys going through the same thing you are. It's just, they're just as scared to talk about it as you are. And through honesty, like, just be honest with each other and go from there, man. Everything will blossom through honesty.
100%, man. That's the truth bomb right there, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Dude, thank you for being on. I will have you on again for sure. We can just talk more mental health stuff.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, if there's anybody out there that is struggling or going through crisis or having suicidal thoughts or whatever, 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call it. Reach out for help. For some reason you feel like you can't do that, get a hold of us. Freeburn 2023 at gmail.com, or contact us through our social media. We'll do everything in our power to find you the resources. Doing what we can, brother. That's all we can do.
That's right. You're not alone.
Yep. Well, thank you for being on, brother. Look forward to talking to you more about all this good stuff. And we'll just continue to burn that stigma down one podcast at a time.
I agree, man. Thanks, to you for starting the podcast, being the head of the train, man. Keep trucking forward, and we're going to do this one day at a time.
Yeah, it's going to take all of us, brother.
That's a fact. But hey, at least we got each other.
Yep, there you go. All right, man. Sounds good. We will catch up with you later.
Appreciate you, Matt.
Thanks for tuning in to the Freeburn 2023 podcast. If you or somebody you know is in crisis, reach out to the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. Or if you're looking for counseling resources, contact us at freeburn2023 at gmail.com. We'll do our best to get you to where you need to be. Let's keep burning that stigma, one podcast at a time.